Traders, how are you? Marcello, founder of the Day Trading Academy, co-founder of Speed Up Trader. Today we're going to be doing the recap of what happened in the markets last week. Overall, we started off with a good week, and then we ended off having the third consecutive week of declines for the U.S. stock market. If you guys have any questions, don't forget to mark them with hashtag #AskMarcello. I'll be happy to go ahead and continue to pull all those questions for you to be able to answer them. I'd love to be able to share with you guys almost 20 years of experience. The podcast is available too for those of you guys watching on YouTube. Just look up Day Trading Academy. You'll be able to find it. And don't forget to subscribe here. And if you do like the videos, I do them completely free for you guys. Just leave a like there on the video. I'll be happy to go ahead and continue doing the videos for you. It helps a lot with the YouTube algorithm. Overall for the week, Monday, we closed higher. A lot of investors are responding to a number of deals, corporate deals. There's also a lot of renewed hope in regards to a vaccine for the coronavirus, which if you guys remember the CDC numbers, the survival rate is literally over 98, 99%. Tuesday, we closed higher. Wednesday, we closed mixed as tech shares dived and took the market along with it. We also had news on Wednesday in regards to the Fed. If I go down a little bit here, they basically said that they created a 3-part litmus test to be able to see when they're going to be able to raise interest rates again. They basically are: inflation must rise to 2%, we must be at max employment, and we must be on course to moderately exceed 2% inflation for an extended period of time. And basically all that mumbo jumbo means that they're not going to be raising rates anytime soon. So that helped the market a little bit. Overall, even though the market ended up mixed on Wednesday, Thursday we closed lower. There was a big sell-off in the big tech market, which dragged down the overall stock market, and also some mixed messages about the vaccine. The reason why the vaccine is so important is because, the world has literally been on lockdown for months, and the vaccine supposedly is supposed to protect us from, quote-unquote, the virus. So basically, if we have the vaccine, we can go back to a semblance of normal. I don't think it's going to be the same kind of normal, but we can go back to kind of living our day-to-day lives, so to speak. And, you can go get your hair cut and go to the gym and do what normal people used to do before 2020. Friday, we closed lower. Technology shares dragged down for a third day in a row, and all three major indexes posted, like I mentioned before, third consecutive week of declines. U.S. stocks are now at 6-week lows. Apple is only at $100. Can you imagine that? Dow was down 0.02% for the week. It's still down 3.09% for the year. S&P 500 was down 0.64 for the week, up 2.75% for the year. And the NASDAQ was down 0.55% for the week. And for the year, it's still up 20.29%. Overseas market news, Europe was mostly lower. Italy, the biggest loser there at 1.51%. Latin America was mostly lower as well. Africa and Middle Eastern markets were mixed. Asia and the Far East was mixed as well. And I'm going to, since most of you guys, since the U.S. essentially is most of the viewers that we have here, let me know if you guys want to know the percentages of the actual markets on the international markets as well, or if you just want to know kind of an overall view, if they were mostly lower or mostly higher. If there were some outliers there, I can definitely share those with you. Bitcoin, not a lot of news with Bitcoin this week. It was quite volatile. It did go down it went up 5.41%. It got to 10,915 with 10 cents. And finance and banking news, the Fed, I told you about the 3-part litmus test. The Chinese yuan, which is the currency from China, reached its highest level in the last 16 months against the dollar on Tuesday, after data pointed that China is on good track with their economy and their economic numbers after they allowed the virus to get out of China instead of controlling it there. If you guys don't know, for example, China closed off the country from Wuhan. They didn't allow anybody to go in and out from Wuhan, especially with flights, but they allowed international flights out of Wuhan. So they literally allowed it to escape, but they didn't want it to go into their country. 70% of finance executives in the U.S. at major U.S. firms are predicting that no matter who wins the election, that tax rates will most likely be going up. 70% of them say that. And this has to do, obviously, with the situation with the debt. We're now, if I'm not mistaken, at $27 trillion in debt. And at some point, we got to pay that back. The Democratic candidate Biden is saying that the U.S. corporate tax rate, it will go up to 28% from 21%, and Trump was the one that brought it down to 21% from a 35% rate in 2017 tax cuts, and Trump, hasn't suggested any major changes. In commodities, BP, British Petroleum, which they changed their name to Beyond Petroleum to be more environmental, becomes the first oil major to call the end of an era that many felt would last another decade or so. They're saying that the relentless growth of oil demand is mostly over in its latest energy outlook, and oil consumption may never return to levels seen before the pandemic. U.S. crude for the week is up 10.12%. It got to 41.11. It's still down over 33% for the year. And international crude, which is called Brent, was up 8.33% to about $43.15. It's still down close to 35% for the year. Copper, which is a major industrial metal, it's used in industry, which is 2-year high at 6,858 ton. It's a high since June 2018. Speculators are buying quite a bit of it due to the economic recovery more than anything in China, because remember, China does have the second largest economy in the world now, and helped by the weakening of the U.S. dollar as well. The copper has surged 55% and reached 45-month lows in March. Precious metals for the week, gold is up 0.42%. Not a lot of movement in the precious metals. Went up to 1,949. Silver's up 0.03% to $26.82. I don't know if you guys remember all of all of the times that I recorded videos talking about gold and silver, gold and silver, gold and silver. If you guys didn't watch the presentation that I did at the seminar that we had for all of our traders at Day Trading Academy this year, I uploaded it to YouTube, where I had an open position of a loss of about $42,000, and it performed quite well with this huge surge that we had recently. Tuesday, in political news, the President Trump hosted the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, as well as foreign ministers from United Arab Emirates, which is the country where Dubai is at, and Bahrain, which is another country in the Middle East, marking a historic normalization agreement between the three countries. Bahrain wins international praise, joining the UAE in normalizing, establishing ties with Israel. Trump marked it as a historic day and also said that there were going to be other Middle Eastern countries that were going to join in relatively quickly as well. Bahrain, however, could have a problem in their home country, as their but their population, let's say, may not agree, considering that they're part of a different Muslim sect. Trump hailed the occasion and says that the Abraham Accords are going to bring another 5 Middle Eastern countries rather quickly. In further east of Europe, in Belarus, the opposition leader, I should say, demanded on Friday that an international mission document the quote-unquote atrocities that are happening during the crackdowns against the anti-government protesters. I'm not even going to try to say her name, but hopefully they'll put it, the guys that process the videos will put it right here for me so you guys can see that. But she says that she is open for talks for ongoing violence, but she wants everything to be documented. U.S. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away at the age of 87 on Saturday. This is going to throw a huge wrench into the election, in my opinion. I think that, and remember, whenever I do these videos, I think most of us are tired of all this political fighting all the time, so I definitely don't want, I don't want to talk about politics, but it is going to create, I think, a pretty nasty situation in terms of the election, because now I think the Democratic base is going to be revved up a little bit more, have a little bit more emotion, and they're going to move a little bit more, let's say. But the real key to this, I think what's going to happen is I do believe that the election wasn't going to be decided the day of the election like it normally is. We're going to have a situation where it's going to be decided by the Supreme Court. So before it was 5-4. with Justice Roberts leaning sometimes to the left. So it was kind of a balanced Supreme Court. And this matters to both the right and the left, the liberals and the conservatives, because the Supreme Court decides a lot of things. Well, if the Republicans are able to get in another justice that's right-leaning, especially hard right-leaning, which some say the potential person could be, then it would be an overwhelming majority for the conservatives or for the right, being 6-3. So if they're able to get another justice in there, and we do have what I expect to be a very highly contested election where the Supreme Court is essentially going to decide it, then this could be what decides the election. Because if they don't get another justice in there, then it could be even, split 4-4, and we can have a stalemate, quote unquote, in terms of the election. But if they are able to get somebody in there, then they're more likely to win it in the courts. Other than that, U.S. Attorney William Barr in recent weeks has made series of claims that left-leaning civil rights activists are insist that their unfounded concern regarding the November U.S. elections over mail-in voter fraud. He's saying that we should be worried about it, whereas the left is saying it's not. Let's wonder who's committing the actual fraud. Republicans have stated that large-scale mailings of ballots by Democrat-controlled state governments are going to undermine the confidence in the election and the rule of law as well. In economic news, the new claims for unemployment decreased from a seasonally adjusted rate of 860,000 when the week ending September 12th, which was last Saturday, if you guys are watching this, to 893 the prior week. Now, it remained at higher levels as the labor market recovery shifts into low gear and consumer spending cools, as we haven't had another stimulus to be able to help the economy. And the jobless claims are 4 times. I thought this was actually very interesting. The jobless claims remain 4 times above the beginning of 2020, the pre-pandemic levels. U.S. consumer increased retail spending in August for the 4th consecutive month. This is actually pretty important because it's a 3rd month now that retail spending was above pre-pandemic levels. Remember, if we're talking about any economic number for most of the, let's say, more advanced economies, a country like the U.S. or most of Europe or Australia, the vast majority, the biggest chunk, let's say, of the economy is consumer spending. So in the U.S., we have it at almost 70%. So when we talk about an increase in the seasonally adjusted rate for retail sales, that's really important because that's a big chunk of the economy. EU's adoption of the Summer of Economic Recovery package, including an agreement to share the debt, is allowing them to be able to go ahead and continue their strength. The European Commission, before it was a partnership between France, Germany, and the UK, the 3 largest economies in the European Commission. But it's been a situation where, if you guys don't know, a country like Germany or the Nordic countries that are part of the EU, which many of them are not, never wanted to share the debt due to the fact that, Germany is a little bit more fiscally responsible, where more socialist-leaning countries like Spain and Italy and Greece are not that fiscally responsible. So Germany didn't want to be on the hook to be able to pay all of their debt, even though Germany is one of the only countries in the world that was decreasing their federal debt recently. Now they're going to jack it back up because of the stimulus, but it's important to note. Other than that, in corporate news, shares of Eastman Kodak were up 50% to over $9 on Wednesday after an independent review cleared the CEO of insider trading in regards to a $765 million U.S. government loan to be able to produce pharmaceutical ingredients. FedEx is also up 7% at $252 when they reported revenues of $19.3 million. They outperformed with an expectation of just 17.4, and they're up 13.3% year over year. Their operating income went up by 56.2% as well. So as you can see, even though we have a lot of people suffering, in my opinion, we have one of the biggest transfers of wealth right now in history, because a lot of smaller companies, smaller business, all went bankrupt. Yelp is reporting that 60% of the businesses that were open before are going to be permanently closed. But you could still go shop at Walmart during the pandemic. You can still go to Home Depot. You see what I mean? So a lot of these bigger companies essentially are skyrocketing, Amazon, everybody, whereas a lot of us, you and I, a lot of our businesses have been shut. In trade news, Biden warned the UK that it must honor the North Ireland 1998 peace agreement as it withdraws from the EU, or if it doesn't, and if Biden wins, there be no separate U.S. trade deal. Prime Minister Johnson is proposing new legislation that's going to break the Northern Ireland Protocol as a way to try to leverage what he wants in terms of the Brexit. In technology, U.S. is going to ban WeChat and the video sharing app TikTok. So if you do like dancing as a selfie, make sure you get that downloaded, updated before Sunday night, because that's when it's going to be banned. WeChat is the WhatsApp of most of us in the U.S. don't use these messaging features very much because we use text messages, but WeChat is essentially the Chinese version of WhatsApp. It's a little bit more advanced, takes payments and things like that. In investment news, NVIDIA has agreed to buy SoftBank's chip division for $40 billion in cash and stock. It's going to have wide-ranging implications for the global semiconductor industry. Gilead Sciences, which is one of the companies that was developing one of the coronavirus vaccines, has agreed to buy a firm called Immunomedics for $21 billion, which is going to allow them to have a availability of a cancer treatment called Trodelvy, which is FDA approved. It's for metastatic triple-negative breast cancer. Shares of cloud company Snowflake were trading below 10.6% at $225. After the blockbuster Wednesday market debut, the stock was up 112%. And Apple shares, pretty cheap right now. They're at just $100 or so, resuming a downtrend of 17% down for the month, 22% down for the peak of the stock. In international events, Taiwan Defense Ministry is saying that 2 bombers and 16 fighter jets from China crossed into the Taiwan's air defense zone. If you guys don't know, Taiwan, they consider themselves an independent nation, whereas China considers them just a rogue province. So the U.S. actively defends and sells military products to Taiwan to be able to defend itself against China, because China is getting a little bit more handsy in terms of trying to get them back, let's say. Taiwan scrambled jets to be able to monitor the movements of the Chinese planes, and in a show of force, a U.S. envoy also held a meeting in Taiwan. And the U.S. plans to sell 7 major weapon systems to Taiwan, including mines, cruise missiles, and drones, as the Trump administration tries to put pressure against China. Many Euro nations are now announcing new restrictions on Friday to curb the surging coronavirus infections across large cities. The U.K. is considering a wide-scale national lockdown again for the virus that has a mortality rate of literally 99%. ICU admissions and deaths have begun to climb, especially in Spain and France. And the U.S. is beefing up its military presence in Syria as skirmishes with Russian forces continue to increase. And an unusual fact this week, being a the nerve agent, if you guys remember the opposition to Putin, Russian gentleman named Alexei Navalny, they're still investigating who was poisoned, right? Even though there's suspect as to who actually did it, Putin. So they actually found the poisonous item that he was poisoned with was found on a water bottle in his hotel room in the Siberian city of Tomsk. Originally was suggested that he was poisoned at the airport. So now apparently it seems that he was poisoned in his hotel. Lawyer for Julian Assange told the UK court on Monday that she was present when Trump tried to offer a pardon for the WikiLeaks founder in return for information that might benefit the president politically. And smoke and wildfires raging across the western U.S. is visible even from 1 million miles away in space. They're 26 times the size of the fires that we had last year, and over 40,000 people in Oregon alone have had to evacuate their homes. California has 26 major wildfires. Thousands of homes have been destroyed. This has been surpassed $20 billion in damages so far. It doesn't include the Hurricane Sally or the other hurricanes that have hit. And even China has had $29 billion in damages after the country experienced its worst summer floods, surpassing those in 1998. They had 751 rivers in China that ran over their seams. Even the Yangtze River, the Yellow River, and the Tahoe Lake were overflowing over their banks. Oh, that's what I was looking for, is banks. And one of the things, if you guys are watching this far, is I still believe that we're going to have some serious problems, not only economically in the next 10 years, but also socially and also environmentally. For example, the situation with the climate, the fires, I should say, they actually were able to prove that it's not actually climate change. The company in PG&E, I think it's called, in California, was found guilty of not doing the things that they were supposed to do to be able to avoid the fires. And also in California, they've had 50 years with no forest management. So actually what has happened is that the forest has built up with a lot of the underbrush, which are the dry leaves. And many people don't know, for example, that there's a lot of trees, I believe they're oak trees there in that part of the world where the indigenous Indians in the United States used to do planned burns, and those trees would actually survive because they're so thick and the protection they have with the bark. Well, now because of the underbrush, that gets so hot that it actually burns those trees down too, and that's part of the reason why the fires are actually so big now in Oregon. That have actually found people that are starting fires as well. So the facts actually indicate that this isn't climate change. It's actually because we're not managing the forest correctly, and also because people are actually starting fires. And other than that, scientists discovered 120,000-year-old human footprints in Saudi Arabia on the shores of an ancient lake, which indicate that at one point Saudi Arabia was definitely more hospitable than it is now. That's your news for this week, guys. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next week.